Well, thank you for having me here today. It's been a long day, but it's been incredible listening to some of the keynote speeches this morning. This year hasn't been a great year for me, I'll be honest with you. I don't particularly like the rain anymore. So right now it's been great, but earlier on in the year was awful because I tend to rust now, which isn't great. It's not a good look for me. Is that for me? Humour has been a huge part of my rehabilitation over the last 6 years, and actually the anniversary of me getting blown up is coming up. So it's this month, and the countdown is 6 days' time, so it's going to be 6 years this month. But humour has got me through some really, really tough parts. There are moments whilst getting blown up that are rather amusing. You might not think so, but they were. And we're going to find out now. If I can work this. We can. So, who am I? What do? I joined the army in 1997. I have to work that out. When I was 20 years old, and within the first sort of few months, I was deployed off to Bosnia. And the only thing I can explain about Bosnia was an old angry man died, and all the people that lived there, they got angry as well and started fighting each other. And then I went to Iraq, and there was an angry man that lived there. He upset people that lived in another country, and another man that was angry and his family and his friends came to get him. And that story paints itself. The Congo, I went to the Congo in the same year, and there's just lots of angry people killing other people that weren't necessarily angry, but they were angry that they were getting killed. And then Afghanistan, where there was an angry man in a cave, and he did some pretty angry stuff. And then the first man that was angry in the first war, he sent his family and his friends to go and square him away, and it ended angrily. Afghanistan for me was, these are all beautiful, beautiful countries that have been destroyed and smashed up because of us, because of humans, for whatever reason, and that's not a good thing. So whatever our political affiliations are and what we actually feel about these little ventures, I can only narrow my point of view down to exactly what was in my line of sight, and the good that I try to do makes my job out there positive. Sorry, was I interrupted? So that's the last picture of me with legs. I didn't want to bluff you and pretend that I didn't have legs. I did have legs at one point. So this is the last picture of me with legs, and I know, calm yourself down, ladies, because I know I was quite good looking, and gentlemen, because let's not upset. I am. I know. I've got a bit of elation on my face after in this picture, and the reason being, we'd been in a firefight, and it was one of the best firefights I've ever been in, because no one got shot. They didn't get shot, and we didn't get shot, so that was good. We were angry, they were angry. But it doesn't say an awful lot about our marksmanship principles, does it? We might as well just been desk popping and having a good time. But I came back in, and there's a look of elation on my face because it's like doing extreme sports, getting shot at. It was good because no one got hurt. So I like showing this picture. It's not a great picture, but it's a good. This is where I lived for the month that I was in Afghanistan. So this was a compound that we rented off the locals. When I was there, this bit wasn't here, but one of my friends got blown up here. This road wasn't there. I lived in here. I lived with another medic. Sorry, am I not talking loud enough? No. I lived in there with another medic and some mice. We didn't speak the same language. There was a language barrier, but we seemed to be all right in that room together, us and the mice. I got blown up here. My leg was up here somewhere. And my rifle was up here. There was bits of me spread over quite a large area. I didn't walk back, clearly. So that was where we lived, and I just like setting the scene of what it was like out there, because sometimes it could be like being back in the UK, and sometimes it could be like being in the middle of a desert, and sometimes it could be like being in Vietnam. Not that I've ever been there, but from the films, that's what it felt like. So it was a very odd place to be. So, what happened? Well, surprisingly, the British Army had a plan. And for any of the guys in the RAF here today, yep, it's surprising, but the British Army had a plan. And the idea being is we were going to leave really early in the morning, and we were going to march to a particular place, and then we were going to wait and watch. And the idea was that someone else was going to come in later on, and with a Chinook, which is the 2 propellers, land. Some troops were going to get off, and whilst it was vulnerable on the ground, we were going to offer it protection. Well, I didn't get that far. Under the cover of darkness, we left our camp, and I got about 150 metres, as I said, and activated an improvised explosive device. It took off my right leg instantaneously. My left leg was degloved from my ankle to my knee. My right arm was blown up. I also lost my right testicle, which is irritating because I liked it quite a lot. It did get an awful lot of use, so I suppose that's not the end of the world. Let's just think about my right testicle a bit longer. And my worst injury, to be honest with you, was my hairline. It's never really recovered, which is awful. So I'm lying there in the desert. I was momentarily unconscious, and in that split second, I thought to myself, am I injured? Because I didn't know at the time I was unconscious. Is anybody else injured? And if anybody else is injured, can I treat them? I woke up in a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort. My trousers and my pants had been blown off. It was cold. So I'm lying there. I screamed a little bit, and I was a bit upset. And then I realised that nobody was really taking any notice of me. There was a firefight going on, and there was dust in the air, and it was still very dark. And then a few sort of emotions went through my mind, and the first one being anger. I was scared, but also I felt quite guilty, and I felt guilty because one of the first things I said was, "Why me?" which implied that somebody else should have been injured and had the same injuries as me. So within the first couple of seconds, I went through a whole bunch of emotions, but guilt being one of the overarching sort of emotions I felt. So I'm lying there, and eventually it's all calmed down a little bit, and someone shouts, "Medic," to which I reply, "I am the fucking medic." If anybody's in here, I don't swearing, sorry. Bit too late. And then somebody else went, "Oh shit." So they had to come and find me, and they don't just walk up and start treating me. They had to get metal detectors out and use the metal detectors to get to me. So I had some treatment, even though a low level of treatment, probably about 10 minutes after I was injured. And the guy that first came up to me, I had to talk him through what to do. So I had to tell him to put tourniquets on each stump and on each leg. And where I landed actually was 3 foot away from another improvised explosive device. And one of the guys that came out to me, he had a rucksack full of plastic explosive. So if we had taken a wrong move, or someone had just stepped back a little bit, I wouldn't be stood here today. I'd just be ahead probably. So they eventually got me onto a stretcher, which is similar to this kind of stretcher. This is a training picture, but this is the kind of stretcher that I'd have been put on. Now, to a man that I know, a lot of my friends I met whilst I was rehabilitating, most of us fell out of our stretcher. So in between where I was injured and the patrol base where we were just left, I fell out of it, and there was another discussion which may have involves more swear words to get me back in the stretcher. Eventually we got outside the patrol base, and that's where the definitive medical treatment happened, and that's where they really kind of saved my life. At the same time, there was a Chinook in the air which had been released to go and pick up an Afghan national soldier. He had been shot. And my wounds were considered worse, and so they diverted the helicopter to me. If it had been reversed and I'd been shot and he'd been injured in the same way as me, it would have been diverted to him. It wasn't based on who I was, it was based on me purely. So these guys came and picked me up, and we flew back to Bastion, where I had the first of many, many operations. So the next picture is a little bit uncomfortable, but we've all had our dinner, so we finished with the main course and the chicken's been eaten, or it was duck tonight, wasn't it? But the next picture is a little bit uncomfortable. It's a picture taken, squaddies like selfies as well. So it's a picture from when I was actually blown up. But I think it's necessary that we all see it, because at the end of the day we all pay our taxes, and it's necessary that we know what our tax dollar pays for. So this is me. Clearly I had jaundice. And modern technology is incredible because we can actually capture speech bubbles as well these days. So there's me lying there in bits. Very painful. So, although, this is primarily about what happened to me, back at home, my wife, and she's a very, very lucky lady, extremely, she was at home. We'd only been married for less than 3 months at this point. We were married on August the 1st, 2009. So this was not a great wedding present that I could give her. And she had to have the knock at the door. She had to be there when the knock at the door came. But fortunately, it was half term because she was a primary school teacher and she was with her parents. So the guy came round. He didn't, he realised that we weren't home and he had to go to my father. My father, he's quite pragmatic, and he just said, "Give it to me straight. Is he alive or dead?" I don't actually know the answer he wanted, but I was alive. They then had to obviously call my mum and speak to her, and you know how mums can be. They can be extremely embarrassing and emotional and stuff. So eventually they got hold of my wife, and it was explained to her what had happened to me. So our roles changed, and she had to become a carer as well as a husband. And this is me getting better in hospital. I was in hospital for 5 weeks, and then I was discharged. If I'd known I was getting paid an extra £150 a day, I'd have stayed a lot longer. I'd have said, "I'm a bit poorly, I think I need to stay." The one thing that got me through hospital was Homes Under the Hammer. If anybody interrupted Homes Under the Hammer, they got a bedpan thrown at them. So this is just clearly, I was full of drugs. Some of them were given to me, some of them I bought. Modern medicine today is incredible, and if I'd been injured in the First or Second World War, the Falklands, or early on in Afghanistan or Iraq, I'd have died. But modern medicine is amazing, and that's why I was fixed so quickly. So, like I said, I left after 5 weeks and I went to Ely Court. Are there any doctors in the room, or any clinicians of any type? I'm trying to find another consultant, because I had a bet with my consultant that I was going to be walking before Christmas. He hasn't paid the bet yet, and I'm trying to find another consultant that will pay the bet. But they're very few and far between, seemingly. So I was walking by Christmas, by the 17th of December 2009, albeit in between these bars, but I was walking. But it's not all bad. Getting blown up, you get some good stuff. And I managed to arrange my wife to be on Michael Bublé's Christmas special. So, Secret Squirrel, I organised this thing for her, and she thought that her sister had got these tickets, but I arranged it, and she went on stage and spoke to Michael, and I don't know if this is a good thing or bad thing, but I came through the doors. She probably didn't really want me there cramping her style with Michael. And then he sang us a song, and then she just proceeded to tell me off because who was looking after our very new daughter. And I just said, she's all right, she's at home on her own. So it's not all bad. So what have I been doing since? Well, I left the army last year and had to set up my own thing, and public speaking seemed to be really, really easy. So I thought I'd do that. And one of the things that really got me on the road was all the challenges I did. So not long after I was injured, I went skiing. I can assure you that on this contraption here, I was really, really scared, and adrenaline is coloured brown. I was on a very slight slope, and learning to ride this thing was very odd. It's very, very quick. By the end of the week, I was getting airborne on this thing. I was landing on my head. I really shouldn't have been there. My arm was still broken, but I didn't tell anybody that. I just cracked on. I then got back into cycling, and we did our first event was one of the battlefield bike rides for Help for Heroes, and I raised about £4,500, which I was extremely, really, really chuffed about. And then we went on a race across America, and we cycled from San Diego to Annapolis in this team. Not the bear. He was there, but he's not injured enough. And we cycled from San Diego to Annapolis on the other side, and it was about 3,051 miles in 7 days, 7 hours and 38 minutes, not that I was counting. Thank you. We got legless before and after. That was too easy. I then had another crack at triathlon and completed a half Ironman in the Cotswolds. I've done a little swim around Brownsea Island, which was interesting to say the least. I just turned up and decided I'd do it. It's a 6.5 kilometre swim. I managed to get Vaseline all over my goggles so I couldn't see where I was going. I think I heard a French accent at one point. I certainly got seasick halfway round, but I did it in 2 hours, and I was quite pleased with that. I have a secret though, I eat quite a lot of beans. So I did do the Invictus Games last year with Prince Harry, and I wanted to do it slightly more low-key for myself. I didn't want a lot of the guys did loads of stuff, I just wanted to do one thing, and that was the swimming. And I thought I was being clever because I thought that was a dead cert for a medal, but I think some of the guys cheated because they had like 4 limbs that I was competing against, which I thought was, I offered to help with that, but they refused kindly. I didn't medal, but it was an amazing experience, and the British public was superb. It was an awesome event. I like different challenges, and I made one of my friends do a parachute jump this year. He vaguely mentioned it, so he did it, and we raised some more money for Help for Heroes. And then, was that a text message? If it's my mum, just tell her I'm all right. So I do a volunteer speaking for Help for Heroes, and with the challenges and the volunteer and the speaking, I've raised about £1 million for Help for Heroes, which I like giving. It's something very, very, very dear to me. I can't be given something without trying to give back in return, and it was very important to me and my family that we did something to repay the money. And these are some of the sort of charities that I've worked with. Help for Heroes is the main one, but I like a good party, so just drag me out for a charitable event and I'll talk. We'll talk for food. And then my motivational stuff, so I made my own website, which is Blown Away, and I've tapped up my friends so much over the years. I wanted a novel or new way to kind of raise charitable funds, so I've got a clothesline, one facing Europe and one facing America. For some reason, this picture does really well. I don't know whose this child is. It's not mine anyway. But our kind of core values, we like to try and inspire and motivate, but we also like it back again. Humour is clearly one of our key core values, and giving back is really, really important to us. I've learned a few things since I've been injured. One, that to always try and find 5 good things from 1 bad. I think that's incredibly important. Again, to give back, to always move on. Life is like a book, really, and if you keep on reading the same chapter, you can't move on with life, and certainly that applies to me. If I didn't keep on turning the pages, then my life was just going to be stuck in a rut. And I didn't really fancy watching Jeremy Kyle for the rest of my life and drinking whiskey and playing on my Xbox. I haven't got an Xbox, I don't really like whiskey, and Jeremy Kyle, it would break me after a while. So, those are the kind of things that are important to us. And that's me, really. Thank you for listening.